let's get over to the Survivor contest strategies. And this first one also is the pro tip of the day. We do one of these per show here on the network, and it's understand completely the rules of your contest. And the reason we say this, because there are some of these Survivor contests that actually allow you to lose a game and you can continue going, right? I mean, there's some of these that you get like a scratch or a strike or whatever, and some that just, if you lose, you're gone, you're donezo. And so there are very different ways in these very different sites. And again, we will talk a lot about what's going on out here behind us, but we know that you're playing another contest. We know that there are some, the rules at DraftKings are different from the rules here. We know that some of the ones that you're going to run in your home office pool and things like that are going to be differently. So just make sure before you start to get into this season or get too far, Mike, that you aren't straying crazy because you didn't understand fully how this contest works.
It always pays off to do a little light reading. Yeah. Just read through whatever the rules are. I actually play a contest where you can only pick against a team 3 times during the season. So you can't keep fading the exact same team, which also changes your strategy there. A lot of these contests will allow you to buy in after week 1 or after week 2 or after week 3, but it will cost you more money to rebuy if you lose those weeks. All of those should be adjust your strategy based on how you want to play, but make sure you know the rules going into it so that you're able to at least know, hey, what are my options here? What can I do? What can't I do? And how will it affect me in the future?
I'm glad that you brought this up a little earlier in the show. This is also one of our tips here for these Survivor contests, which is just know or at least estimate the size of the pool that you're in, because that can really and truly change your strategy as you head into these things. Because by and large, the bigger the pool, the more contrarian you will have to be. The smaller the pool, the more chalky you can be, because inevitably, even if you're in small pools, you will have these guys that try to get cute, and then along the way, they end up just knocking themselves off, and you can be far more chalky in smaller pools than you can in these big ones. So if you know, or at least can estimate the size of the pool that you are going to be in, you can at least then, as you start to plan things out, understand, you know what, I can probably be fairly chalky in this thing because there's only 50 people, 100 people, whatever it might be. Or if you're talking the thousands upon thousands, like in the contest behind us out here, the ones over at DraftKings, then you can't just necessarily go straight by the chalk every single week.
Just to expound on that, the smaller the pool, the more likely it is you don't need to go 20-0. You don't need to go 18-0. Whatever that goal is, the finish line changes depending on the size of the pool. With a pool like this, that's the Survivor here, which we're going to see, I'm going to guess 9,000 entries in. You got to go 20-0. So start planning to go 20-0, because that's what it's going to take to be able to win the contest. Now, if you're playing a smaller one with your office, if you're playing one with a max number of entries online, you don't necessarily need that 20-0. Your strategy moving forward doesn't have to be as in-depth, and survive in advance becomes much more of a real thing if you're playing with 10 to 20 people than if you're playing with 9,000 of your closest friends, because you're going to end up splitting this with someone at the end of the Survivor Millions. Or I'm sorry, the Survivors, the Circa Survivor. You're going to end up splitting with someone because more than one person's going to go 20-0 here.
So if you take a look, and you've been listening to us all contest show long, we've talked about basically saying this: planning, roadmap, blueprint, whatever you want to call it. Trying to go in and at least get that somewhat of an idea. You're going to eventually get off of your plan. It will inevitably happen, but you want to at least have an idea of where to go. And specifically, we bring this up for the contest out here behind us, or any of the ones that you're in that have special rules. When you have to play these holiday weeks as individual weeks of their own, there are teams then that you are going to have to save should you make it that long into the contest. What you don't want to do is have burned through all the teams that you have whenever it comes to Thanksgiving week or Christmas week, and then you're just out of the contest. And so you need to have some sort of roadmap and say, okay, I'm not going to use this team all year long because I have to use them here. I'm not going to use this team all year long because I have to use them here. And you just got to kind of hope that your plan plays out, because here's the deal. Injuries are going to happen.
Yep.
Teams are going to be worse or better than you thought. You're going to think, you know what? I'm going to pick on this team, and this is how it's going to work, and this way. Well, you might get there, and the team that you were going to pick on is either awesome, or the team that you were going to back, their quarterback's been on the IR for the last 4. Again, things can go wrong, but at least you had a plan, and you didn't find yourself going, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm going to do now.
I try to save at least 2 home teams on each of those specialized days. And this year's going to be awfully interesting. On Thanksgiving Day, Washington goes into Dallas. That's going to be a heavily played game for Dallas. A lot of people are going to be saving Dallas. And if you look at that Christmas weekend, you've got Kansas City at home. I believe it's against Denver. And you've got Philadelphia at home as well. So a lot of people are going to save Kansas City or Philadelphia for that Christmas week. The hard part about this is that means you can't pick Dallas, Kansas City, or Philadelphia, 3 of the most likely teams to win every single time that we have an NFL week here. So you've really got to decide, when do I want to take these shots? And it goes back to why, I like picking Minnesota week 1. There's not a lot of weeks I want to use Minnesota. I understand why people want to play Washington week 1. Not a lot of weeks you're going to use Washington. So the survivor strategy and when to use a team is key to try and get you through the full season.
Which kind of gets us to this next tip here, which is assessing a team's current and future value, right? And so we can talk about the circuit contest, but let's just say you're in a most of you probably won't be playing in a contest in which there is a separate week for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. So let's just say you're in a basic survivor pool. You can look and you can say, okay, this team is going to be worth way more to me further on into the season, because I think they're going to be good every season, no matter what game I can go up against it. So basically, like a team like the Eagles or the Chiefs, like you just mentioned, they're going to be favored nearly every single week when they take the field. So the longer you have that team in your back pocket, the less chance you're going to be caught with your pants down, because you can always pull that team out, and you're more than likely going to get them as a favorite, right? And at least you're going in with a favorite in a game in a week, right? And that's basically where you need to be in these contests. And so the future value of a team like the Eagles or the Chiefs is always going to be super, super high, because they're going to be favorites in nearly every single game that they get in. Now, the flip side could be said about some of these other middling teams. You really need to assess, hey, am I going to get a better version of this team down the line? Probably not. I need to take advantage of this now against this poor team while they're playing poorly, and I just need to go ahead and get this team out of the way right now.
And then you have teams that have quarterback questions. And what do you do with them? What do you do with someone like Sam Howell at Washington? What do you do with someone like Desmond Ridder, who's playing for Atlanta? What do you do with Brock Purdy and the San Francisco team? Because if he's good, he's another one of those wild cards you could pull out of your pocket at any time. If he's terrible, all of a sudden it's Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
You ready to put $8 million on Sam Darnold? So you got to try and time when these teams are peaking and when you think that when you believe what team is actually taking the field. And for me, all 4 of those teams I just mentioned, the jury's out a little bit. I want to see a little bit more from these quarterbacks before there are teams that I'm going to put there on their survivor list, and it will either end up going for or against them. If Desmond Ridder is what I saw last year, I'm going to be betting against Atlanta quite a bit this year.
Right.
But if Brock Purdy plays well, all of a sudden he's another one that you have there, and you've got Arizona in that division that I want to probably pick on early in this season.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if Kyler Murray is going to come back, right? So you've got to kind of select how you want to use these teams and how you want to play with them or against them early in the season.
Now, they might buck the trend, and they might be the second coming here of Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, and they step in and look like all pros from day one. But traditional thinking would be that over the course of the season, these rookie quarterbacks are going to at least figure the game out a little bit better and play a little bit better. So, like you said, either targeting them earlier in the season, and then also understanding that maybe in some of these coin flip games, because, by the way, you're going to find yourself in a bad position. Yeah, you're going to find yourself in a bad position at some point if you make it deep enough in one of these contests where, hey, look, I don't really love playing the Texans. I don't really love playing the Colts or the Panthers or whatever, but at least I've got 12 games under my belt with CJ Stroud or 10 games under my belt with Anthony Richardson or whatever, as opposed to rolling him out there in week 1.
Well, the Colts are going to go to the Texans at some point in the season, right? And that's probably the only time you'd ever use the Texans is when you've got Anthony Richardson coming in there, rookie quarterback against rookie quarterback, but you get the Texans at home. You got to look at some of those to be contrarian to get you through, but man, does it make you nervous when you get later in the season and you're still sitting on the board.
As we're sitting here, guys, maybe the most important tip also, listen, it's survive. Don't get too cute early in the season. You don't have to be. You got to get to week 2 before you can get to week 20. Before you can get to week 18, right? I mean, you've got to get to week 2 before you can get to week 3. You got to get to week 3 before you can. I see so many people who are playing these coin flip games in week 1, and I'm just going, bro, what are you doing? There's no point in doing it. You got to get to week 2.
So you're telling me I shouldn't listen to the people who are telling me to take the Packers, who are plus 2.5 at the Bears in week 1. Don't do that.
Guys, don't get too cute in this thing. You just need to advance. Trust me. People will fall out. You don't have to be incredibly contrarian early on in these contests. There will come a point where you have to do that. And guess what? It's a good problem to have.
It's just fine to take the Ravens
It's a great problem to have.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.